Attorney Gerald Griggs, the Justicefighter, and it's been a minute since I did a live stream, but I wanted to get back to our voice, our vote, so we can have a real conversation about what's happening here in Georgia and how we make sure we mobilize the vote. So let's talk about the great voter purge. And if you don't know what purging voters is over the past few years since the last landmark Supreme Court decision, states have been removing individuals from the rolls, namely in Ohio as well as here in Georgia. And so, specifically in Georgia, there have been over 1.3 million Georgians removed from the voting rolls. So I wanted to give you guys some information about that. So the most prominent efforts to remove people from the voting rolls came in Ohio, where in 2015, the purge that has now been reviewed by the Supreme Court and been upheld with the decision on its legality. States across the country have experimented with knocking voters off the rolls, including Georgia. And basically, our Secretary of State, Brian Kemp, has been at the forefront of this effort. Since 2015, 1.3 million Georgians have been removed from the rolls between 2013 and 2017. That represents 18% of the state's eligible voting population. Now, scientists have broken those numbers down, and it says that it found 1/3 of the voters, which is 417,000, were removed because they were either deceased, ineligible felons, or duplicate registration. That left 850,000 that were removed that were otherwise eligible and legal voters simply because they did not vote in 2 consecutive general elections. Now, we're in election season, and we are in the process of registering people to vote across the state. Our Voice, Our Vote is a voter education, registration, and mobilization platform hosted by a host of groups, including the NAACP. And we're in the process of registering voters. The reason why we're registering voters is to make sure we cut into that 800,000 that have been removed by the Secretary of State. And it's so important that you know what's happening. So the last day to register for this midterm election is October the 9th. And so between now and then, we're trying to make sure we connect with those individuals who have been removed, the 815,000 individuals. 300,000 of those individuals are African American. That means that you have been disenfranchised, meaning you have been removed from the rolls, you've been removed from the ability to exercise your fundamental right as an American citizen to vote. Now, the reason why they're doing this is to lessen the opportunity for the controlling party to lose power. This is absolutely un-American. It's absolutely undemocratic. And we, as concerned citizens, have to push back on this. And the way we push back on this is that you make sure that you're registered to vote. You can go simply to the Secretary of State's website, mvp.sos.ga.gov. mvp.sos.ga.gov, Secretary of State's website. Put your name, your address in to see if you're registered to vote. If you're not registered to vote, you can click on the register button and re-register to vote. The reason why it's important is because we have one of the most important elections coming up in the midterm elections, which will be November the 6th. We have to make sure that you are registered to vote. I know people say over and over again, our ancestors fought and died for this most precious right. And that is true. But the real reason why you need to make sure you're registered to vote is because you need to know where your tax dollars are going. You need to make sure that your roads are taken care of. You need to make sure that your sewer and sanitation is taken care of. You need to make sure that the criminal justice system runs effectively and fairly. All of these things are on the ballot. And if you don't have the right to vote, which 815,000 people have been removed, you will not have a voice in that in determining how our government runs. The government is run by the people, for the people. It's not run by some shadow government. It's not run by some backdoor smoke-filled room. It's run by politicians that are elected by the people. And if you're not participating in the electoral process because you've been disenfranchised, then you have been removed from the ability to exercise your voice. So I wanted to bring this information directly to you. Break it down. Voter purge means people have been removed from the voting rolls. They have effectively had their right to vote taken away illegally. The Supreme Court has said that these processes are legal, but we still argue they are illegal because, again, simply because you have not voted in the last two elections does not mean you should lose your constitutional right to access to the ballot. Again, this is why organizations like the New Georgia Project, the NAACP, and Spread the Vote, and loads of other organizations are launching an effort. I want to give you some information about one effort. One effort is by Black Voters Matter. They are taking a bus around the South, but particularly South Georgia, to make sure people, one, know they're registered to vote, two, if they're not registered, re-registering them, and three, making them aware of the important issues that are on the ballot. So how can you help? One, you can share the video, but two, you can make sure that you are registered, because after October the 9th, we will move from the registration portion to the mobilization portion. We've had registration events. We had one today, East Atlanta Village, Vochilla. We had one last week at Luda Day Weekend. We've had the A3C. We had one Music Fest. We're going around the metro area, and we're also going to go throughout South Georgia, East Georgia, North Georgia, and West Georgia. But we're going to use the internet. We're going to use videos like this to make sure we empower you with the information that you need to know. There's also another program that's going on through the New Georgia Project. New Georgia Project is a nonprofit that has re-registered individuals to vote in excess of 500,000 new voters. But they are partnering with churches, and this is why I need your help. They're partnering with churches to do absentee voting, absentee ballots. So if you could tag your church in this video to get more information, what they're asking is for pastors each Sunday to lay aside 10 to 15 minutes to talk about early voting, to talk about, of course, voter registration, but to order absentee ballots so that the church as a whole in church can vote and then mail them off to the Secretary of State. Again, you can get an absentee ballot. It has, you don't have to put stamp on it. You can fill out the ballot. You can send it back in once early voting starts on October the 15th. But we're asking all the churches, the Baptist churches, the AME churches, the CME churches, the non-denominational churches, just for 15 minutes during their service to empower the people to understand that they have the right to early vote through absentee voting, and you can do it as a church on any Sunday between October the 15th and the end of early voting, which is, I think, November the 2nd. That's what we're asking. It's called, I forget the name, but the New Georgia Project is doing it. I'll leave a link to the New Georgia Project in the bottom of the video. But we need to make sure that we know that absentee voting is perfectly legal. It's perfectly effective. If people can't say, I can't take off from work on November the 6th to vote, they can vote early. They can vote absentee, and it's very, very simple. And then you can check whether or not the Secretary of State got the absentee ballot before the election day. So that's one program that's going on. The NAACP has hired staffers to make sure that at least in the metro area there are 15,000 new registered voters. If you want information on that, you can go to www.naacpga.org. That's a Georgia NAACP, and you can find out information on that. Joe Alvarado will be handling that portion, and we're trying to get out the vote. We also have our 159 county strategy, where we will be engaging with each branch in 159 counties throughout Georgia to make sure, one, people are registered and two, people are mobilized. What we need you to do is to make sure you're aware of what's going on. Make sure you share this with your friends. Make sure you share it with your congregation. Make sure you share it with your civic organization. We partner with the Masons. We partner with the Pan-Hellenic Council and the Greeks. We are partnering with any organization that is interested in mobilizing the vote, just like we mobilized the vote in Alabama. This is important. We have to get this vote out. There's no more pressing issue in our community than this election. And so I provided you information in other videos on the candidates that are on the ballot. I will continue to do that as we move forward, but I want to make sure everybody understood voting registration and the voter purge that's occurred. Again, 815,000 people have been removed from the rolls. If you have not voted in the last 2 consecutive elections, you need to check your voter registration. Go to www.sos.mvp. Go to www.mvp.sos.ga.gov to check your voter registration and make sure you're registered. If you're registered, I need you to talk to 5 of your closest friends. Make sure they're registered. It's more than just asking them are they registered. Pull up the app, have them type in their information, and verify that they're registered to vote and they know where their voting precinct is. So again, I just wanted to drop this quick video, let you know what's going on. Make sure that you understand that our voice, our vote is mobilizing individuals to get them out to vote. Please contact your pastor and your church to get them involved in the New Georgia Project's One Church, One Vote initiative, where you're voting early as a church. We have partnered with the People's Agenda. We have partnered with all sorts of nonprofit organizations to make sure we get this vote out. It's important. So again, it's Attorney Gerald Griggs, a Justice Fighter. I will continue to provide this information to you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing the video. But more importantly, thank you for getting out to vote.